Thank you very much for joining me here this evening as I celebrate the launch of my new poetry collection, Toy Soldiers. It is my second poetry collection, so obviously I'm very excited. First poetry collection, The Suicide, did do well in terms of the reviews, and so I wanted to continue writing, and I was doing a lot of performance poetry in Bristol, so I wanted to continue in that effort and continue with my writing, and hence Toy Soldiers was born. So thank you for joining me here this evening, where I will talk about Toy Soldiers, why I chose to write the collection, and what the collection means to me. And I will read you 3 poems. They will be completely at random. I've got a little mug of green slips of paper, numbers 1 to 28. The collection has 28 poems. My first book also had 28 poems. The number 28 is not significant in any way, but I think, 28 worked. It was a good number. It was a full collection. You felt that you were getting plenty of poems in a collection of 28. So I thought, let's stick with that. Let's have 28 poems. So there's 28 poems again in Toy Soldiers. So I've numbered some slips of paper, 1 to 28, and later I will read 3 poems at random from the book by picking up a slip 1 through 28. So yes, thank you ever so much for joining me here this evening on the day that my second book is launched. It's very exciting, a bit of a whirlwind, but it hasn't been really, because the last year has obviously given a lot of people a lot of time to sort of think things through, and I did thankfully get to edit Toy Soldiers within an inch of its life. So I'm a perfectionist, 100%, and that is draining. Creating a book is hard work. It's painful, as much as it is wonderful. So we're now at the wonderful part, and that takes a little while to sink in. So if I seem a bit don't want to seem ungrateful about this wonderful opportunity, but at the same time, I know how much effort I've put in to being here. So, it's not that it's like, here we are, here's a book. It's, wow, that took me a really long time. Before we start, I want to especially thank anyone that pre-ordered Toy Soldiers. Obviously, I'm extremely grateful for anyone that buys Toy Soldiers in any capacity, at any time. But I'm particularly grateful for those to those that pre-ordered, because it's an extra level of commitment to my poems and my writing if you buy it before it's even on the shelves or online. So thank you so much to anyone that pre-ordered Toy Soldiers. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the book itself. It's a wonderful body of work, which I am extremely proud of. Again, it was a journey. It was hard work. For most of the time that I was editing Toy Soldiers, I was working full time. So it's been a real graft and a real journey for me. But the best things take time. I know that's cliche, but it's true. The best things do take time. They take a lot of effort. And I believe that. And so that's how I work in every scenario. It's exhausting. I don't get a lot of time to chill out. But it helps when you want to do poetry and release books and things like that. So it's good for that. So here we are. Here's my wonderful book. So this is Toy Soldiers by me, Amy Tollyfield, as published by my publishers, Olympia Publishers. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity again to be published through Olympia. It's fantastic. They did my first book, The Suicide, and they're now doing Toy Soldiers. I'm just delighted. They've done a wonderful job, as they did the first time on my book, and it's just incredible to have the book here and to look at it and to know that it's mine. You have no idea how hard the last year has been for everyone, I suppose. It's been a crazy year for all of us. But yeah, it's here, and I love the cover. So I did get the choice of covers. Olympia have their own design team, and so they did sort of kind of mock-ups of different design ideas. This was by far the best. There was another option that was very similar where Toy Soldiers would have been in white, the actual title. I think it looks lovely in gold. I really like that, especially because there's kind of sort of flashes of gold throughout the cover. So I think it looks beautiful. I'm blown away by the book, but again, you know, if you've put your heart and soul into something, then obviously it means a lot to you, and this book really means everything to me. So yes, we've got a blurb on the back. I guess I should read you the blurb. I didn't write this, by the way. Publishers wrote this about me, so I'm very, very grateful for these words. I remember the details because I loved you. But it was not the storybook kind of love that you were hoping for. No hand-holding or kisses in the dark, just missed calls and wanting to know where you were. In Toy Soldiers, Amy Tollyfield presents a compelling collection of poetry covering a broad spectrum of emotions and feelings. Prepare to be captivated by themes such as disappointment and desire, friendship and female empowerment, hope and home, love and loss, mystery and memories, and patience and passion. Toy Soldiers is a profoundly moving and memorable journey through the rich tapestry of life and will not fail to evoke deep contemplation in anyone who reads this amazing anthology. Amy's writing is powerful, poignant, and completely unforgettable. Toy Soldiers is Amy's second collection of poetry. Her first, The Suicide, was published by Olympia Publishers in 2018. So that's a bit of an overcap, bit of an overview on the book. Obviously, there's way more to the book than that. I would generally describe the book as mostly love poetry. It is quite sad love poetry, I have to tell you that. You know, it's genuine and authentic poetry. I do write from my heart, so it is quite thoughtful poetry, and it's quite contemplative poetry for the reader to enjoy. And a lot of colours that I use in my writing. One of the reviewers of my first book mentioned that I do use colours to describe emotions. Do I? You know, you said, do I? I guess I must do. So yeah, I've used a lot of colours in there, and a lot of rhyme, but not every poem rhymes. You know, I vary how often my poetry rhymes, and it's just what feels natural. In the humblest way, I do just sit down and I write a poem. I don't think about what I'm going to write. I might sort of have an idea of the sort of thing I'd like to write, but generally I just decide I'm going to write something and go for it, you know, and I do think that writing is a case of sort of taking that leap of faith with an idea and just sort of committing it to the page. Do all of my poems sound amazing the first time I ever wrote them down? Absolutely not, but in many ways a lot of them, they are the finished product once I've written them. You know, I had an idea at that time. That idea created that poem, and therefore that is my poem. You know, and going back and changing it feels disloyal to that moment and that kind of whatever it was that inspired me to sort of get to that place, you know, and going back and changing even just a word or two, it really is something that I have to be sure about and usually don't do all that often. Punctuation, on the other hand, I'm sort of obsessed with where a comma is or where a full stop is or when's it a semicolon or a colon. That gets a little bit, I get a little bit, well, yeah, obsessed is it's the only word. Obsessed with that. So, you know, any sort of punctuation in Toy Soldiers, I can assure you I've thought about far more than is probably healthy. But that's because I care about it. So yeah, I mean, in terms of, as I say, in terms of poetry, I do just sort of write it straight away and I put it on the page, and that's usually more or less how it stays. Obviously the poetry in here are my favourite poems that I've written. There are poems I've written where I think, you know, and I may revisit those poems in years to come and think, well, actually, no, that was a great poem. But, you know, for me at this time, these are the poems I've written in the last 2 or 3 years where I think, great, yeah. These were all, I think, all written in Bristol. I've mainly sort of said that they were mostly written in Bristol, and I've sort of interviewed recently. But I honestly, I think they were all written in Bristol. I don't think there's any in here that weren't, that I can think of off the top of my head. Or they were written while I was living in Bristol. There's a few that I wrote perhaps when I was commuting somewhere, so not necessarily in Bristol itself, but sort of commuting somewhere. So yeah, it took me 2 to 3 years to compile the anthology. Favourite poems I have here. What are your favourite poems? So basically, again, as I do with poems, I just sort of sat down and created this video. So I didn't actually have a structure or a plan for the video. Terrible, eh? Favourite poems from Toy Soldiers. My favourite poems are probably Western and Cradle. Those are my favourite 2 from the book, but they're not necessarily going to be everyone's favourite 2. They're not the most pleasing poems to listen to, I don't think, in the book. I think there's others that are more rhythmic and perhaps more audience-friendly, reader-friendly. But those are the 2 that I feel resonate kind of the most with how I was really feeling at that time, and really sort of captured everything for me in terms of that moment. So, absolutely. I'm going to now take this opportunity to read 3 poems to you. Because I thought I had more time. What inspires me to write? Anything and everything, but a lot of the time it's some sort of romantic moment or feeling. I wrote Toy Soldiers because I love to write, and I thoroughly enjoyed writing and having my first collection published. So, it's important to me that I was able to do that again, and I want to continue to do that. And it does say here, how long did it take you to compile Toy Soldiers? 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years. After The Suicide was published, I was performing at open mic events and sort of gigs and things with Toy Soldiers. With The Suicide, and then I was writing new things to take to events. So one event in Easter of 2019, they wanted kind of an Easter-based poem or an Easter-themed or have some relevance to Easter. So Gentle Rain in this book, that was written for that event because, again, they needed a sort of Easter theme poem. So yeah, quite a selection. Some that I wrote for like I say, events or kind of open mic nights. Boudica, amazing poem. That was written, to perform. It's got rhythm. It's got history. It's exciting. It's interesting. It was written to perform. So you'll be able to tell when you read the book. You'll be able to tell the poems that were written. For an audience, because they'll have that rhythm, they'll have that energy that you just yes, I can feel that this was written for somebody to listen to and to hear. And then there was somewhere I wrote because I wanted someone to read them, but they're all for reading now, of course. So without further ado, on that note, I will read you 3 poems. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick out this little mug, 3 little colours, and they will be the 3 poems that I will read. And then I'm just going to read them, actually. If I want to, or if I feel it's needed, I'll sort of tell you why I wrote the poem, but probably I will just read the poems. So you'll have to trust that numbers 1 to 28 are in this mug. You'll have to trust me, because they've all been done already, so you can't necessarily see that 1 to 28 are in there. But I assure you they are. So yeah, I'm going to pick out 3 at random. I've, of course, pre-numbered the book already. I pre-numbered The Suicide too, obviously, so that me, so that I could perform, set poems at whatever time needed. So these are numbered 1 to 28. And here we go. Let's see what we have. 10. Nina. In my mind, we meet again. Backs to the wall like the oldest of friends. You'd wear Ralph Lauren, me in Chanel. You'd sheepishly ask me if I have been well. I'd nod in reply and ask you the same. You'd say you're tired of the niceties game. Have the years been kind? The words cut me deep. I firmly but fairly bid you go back to sleep. But your vision won't blur or disappear. Your hand reaches over, but I don't come near. I pray and I plead for your ghost to leave, and slowly but surely I feel the reprieve as your image begins to fade to the wall. I'm left with your scent or nothing at all. Some things are better to never know. One last breath of perfume, then I let you go. Nina. "24. The Victoria Line. Dark and brooding, I am of ominous matter, caught somewhere between the Victoria Line and the better days you had when I was free. I'd watch birds cry out in the morning. I don't know their names, how could I? With their hopeful morning song to welcome in my memories. I sit in that forgotten carriage, shunting about with my bags packed, looking around at all of the faces. I used to practice empathy, but none of the eyes meet mine. You push my head to your shoulder, kiss the scalp, mere bones breathing in the polluted air. I'm glad we can survive together. One last one. I'll go right to the bottom. Seven. Red Skies. It was not lingering. It was just brief. The light-fingered work of a vagabond thief, it did not penetrate, it was not deep, less thorough and meaningful than a cheap chimney sweep. And yet I remember the pockets of hurt that your touch drifted over as I showed you my worth. I wanted for nothing, to only resent, but the less it was poignant, the more that it meant. Toy Soldiers. So there are 25 more poems in this book. Beautiful, beautiful poems. I am, of course, biased, but they are beautiful poems. Genuinely, objectively. No, I do feel they're very beautiful. And, you know, this book is $5.99. You can order it through Olympia Publishers, who are the publishers of my book. You can also order it through Amazon, UK, Foils and Waterstones. It should also be available on other sites such as Barnes & Noble, Amazon in America, Amazon.com, Amazon in India, and also some other Amazons around the world, I think, potentially, maybe not, and some other sites in other countries. I do genuinely feel it's a stunning book. Of course, I'm biased, but I really feel that it is. And I thank you ever so much for joining me here this evening. I will, of course, continue to write, and I will continue to do events when it's possible to do them. We don't know yet when that will be as a society, but, you know, I do have big plans in terms of my writing. So thank you ever so much for joining me here this evening. Do buy the book. It is beautiful. The poems I've sampled, there are more of that ilk, all written by my good self. So yes, do enjoy the collection, and thank you to everyone that has already bought the book. I am honestly very grateful for that, and have a lovely Christmas and New Year. Stay safe, take care, and I hope 2021 brings us all much happier days. But thank you ever so much for joining me here tonight. Take care. Bye bye.